welcome to the Canarian International Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Mossy, and I am an alcoholic serving as your secretary today. Could you join me for a moment's silence to remember the still suffering alcoholic, both inside and outside the room? And Cisco is going to read the preamble for us.
Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. AA has no dues or fees. It is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, or organization or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thank you, Cisco. And a warm welcome goes out to any newcomers or anyone returning to Alcoholics Anonymous. And the chat is now disabled until the end of the meeting, except for the meeting hosts. If you feel the meeting security is at risk at any time during the meeting, please private message one of the co-hosts so they can check it out. And our speaker today is getting me out of trouble. It's Hank. I appreciate you standing in there, Hank. It makes me look good that I always have a speaker. I've never failed yet to get a speaker at a meeting. So it's all good for me. You're unmuted there, Hank. And you speak for 45 minutes, whatever you like. You have plenty of time to tell your story.
Well, if it gets past an hour and a half, let me know, okay?
Okay.
I'm just kidding. My name's Hank, and I'm an alcoholic. And, I'm one that was not going to stay in AA. I was not going to be here, and I wasn't going to stay here. I knew that. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and my mom and dad both were drinkers, big time. On my mom's side, all her brothers and sisters, mom, dad, everybody was drinkers, big time. Beer, mainly beer. A couple of whiskeys here and there, but mainly beer. And the first time I got drunk, I was like 5 or 6 years old, I believe. That's about what it was. I remember my dad saying, I'd rather see him drinking beer than that goddamn pop that he drinks. So, and probably he was right. I don't know. It's good training for an alcoholic, I believe. But the first remembrance that I have was I was running down the stairs with my 2 older brothers running in front of me. And there was a bunch of noise, a bunch of racket going on downstairs. And I rounded the corner, and there I saw my dad with his hands around my mom's throat, strangling her over this buffet. And she had welts on her head where he had hit her. My brother Paul, which was the oldest, Paul was probably about 16, maybe 17 at the time, trying to pull my dad off my mom. And that's the way it always went. That's the way it always went. There was always fighting, screaming, always shit going on. And just never, it was just not a normal life, I always thought. I didn't think people, because I'd watch TV and there was Father Knows Best, and there was the patriotic father that was a good man that helped his son through everything. It wasn't my dad. Certainly wasn't my dad. I mean, he cared about me, I think, but I never really believed it because of the way when he picked a drink up, he certainly became a monster. And I'm the youngest, like I said, and I was not supposed to be here. I was not supposed to be alive, period. My brother Paul was born in 1936. April 24th, 22nd, 37. Carol was born March 31st, 38. Danny was born August 2nd, 39. And Terry was born September 7th, 1940. And then I showed up December 5th, 1945. So I'm pretty sure I wasn't in the cards ever. And being the youngest, because there's like about 10 years difference between me and my brother Paul. And Paul's still alive, and my sister Diane, which is the oldest girl, she's still alive, and the other ones have died basically of addiction, is the way I always looked at it. But it wasn't that way when we were kids. Of course, you know, you were going to live forever, maybe, I don't know. And what would happen is my dad would drink, and he'd get nasty, and he'd get mean. He would beat people, and he was a tool and die maker. That's what he was. Had a good job as he got later in life. My mom worked as a cigar packer, and she drank, like I said. And he would drink to the point where he couldn't get out of bed anymore. He stayed, he couldn't get up. Physically, he could not do it. And she would call the doctor, old Doc Illy. Doc was like a country doctor, is what he was. And Doc would call for an ambulance. The ambulance would come over, pick my dad up, take him to the hospital. And this is like late 1940s, early 1950s, long before detoxes and rehabs. At least in my area, it didn't have any. And they'd take him to the hospital, and they'd tie his arms down with bed sheets because he'd try to swing and hit even the nurses. And they'd dry him out, basically, is all they would do. And he would come back a day, two, a week, maybe later. It always varied. It never stayed the same. And he'd walk in the door just like nothing had ever happened. And I couldn't figure out why he didn't know what the hell he did. And later I learned they were blackouts. And he was in a blackout most of the time when he drank. And he would be fine. And he wouldn't drink. And mom wouldn't drink. While he wasn't drinking, mom would not drink. And all of a sudden, I would come home every day, open the refrigerator door and look. And if there was no beer in it, I thought, God, got it made. Good life. And he was fine. He was nice. He was pleasant. But one day I'd come home and open the door, and there'd be beer in the refrigerator. Now, there may be one or two, or there may be a 6-pack, or there may be a case. But once I saw that beer in there, I thought, oh, shit. Here we go again. And it happened. And he might drink one or two, or he might drink them all. It always varied. It never was the same. But he always ended up getting drunk. And he always ended up going to the hospital. And they dried him out. And he'd come back again. And that was my whole fucking childhood. Bar none. And as those kids got older, as my brothers and sisters got older, they got married and moved away. Paul went away to college, got married a year later. He stayed away. He'd come back for like Christmases and things. And Diane got married. She went to nursing school in Columbus, Ohio, met her husband, and they stayed married for over 60 years, as Paul did, until both of them died. Paul's wife died and Diane's husband died just like last year, within about a month and a half of each other. And Carol got married to Joe, and they moved, and they all started having babies and things like that. And here I am, I'm still going through school. And I played sports. It's pretty good at it. Nothing that I could have gotten a college scholarship. I graduated 27th in the class. Really brilliant. There was 47 in the class. Took the easiest courses there was. Got like D's, D pluses maybe if I was lucky. Something sports wise. In gym I had gotten an A, and I had no idea when I was going to graduate high school what the fuck I was going to do. I didn't know what I wanted to be, had no direction from home. I was going to graduate, and so I chose to join the Marine Corps. And I waited till after my 18th birthday, and I could sign the papers myself. And I joined for 4 years. And went through boot camp and all that, ended up in California. And I'm like 19 years old. I'm in California. Drinking age is 21. So I couldn't, and I didn't drink at all. Not at all. For like a whole year I was there. And from there I ended up 1st Marine Division, mounted out, and went over to Vietnam, but we ended up on Okinawa first. And I was on Okinawa and I got transferred out of the 1st Marine Division to another place on Okinawa. But when I landed on Okinawa, all bets were off. And, you know, I could drink because there was no limit as far as your age. Whatever I lacked in that whole year I was in California, I certainly made up for on Okinawa, and running in the whorehouses and doing all the crazy. Man, that was a crazy place to be. Ended up, I was supposed to come back to the States, and I extended my overseas tour to go to Vietnam. I went down there for 6, 7 months. And I got drunk down there, but not that much. And I never did any other things. Basically, I was a drinker. That's all I was. And I got drunk maybe once in a while, but not too much. If I'd have gotten drunk all the time down there, I wouldn't be here right now. I was medevac, so I was flying in and out, pulling people out in their baggage, and it wasn't fun. But I ended up back in California again. That's where I got my first DUI. I only got 2 DUIs. I actually got 3, but the one was dropped. But I ended up back in Vietnam, or back in California, and then I ended up getting out of the Marine Corps. Luckily, I didn't go back overseas, which they were scheduling me to. And I decided I wanted to go to college. Now, with the grades I got in high school, I don't know any college that would have accepted me, let alone I had a lot of the coursework that wasn't, I didn't take geometry, I didn't take college preparatory English, nothing. So, you know, I had this dream that I was going to go to college. Well, you know, that's like a pipe dream. I think that, yeah, it wasn't really going to happen. Ended up went in this school, and they said, "Do you want?" I said, "I want to go to college." And they said, "How old are you?" I said, 22. And she said, "You're in the military." I said, "I just got out of the Marine Corps in January." She said, "You're accepted." So they let me in. It was a high northern university. It's about 30 miles from my hometown. First year, I got a 3.5 ACUM on a 4-point scale, which is good. Transferred to a state school, and then graduate from there, Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. And I ended up getting going from a master's degree, and I got assistantship at Westchester State because I graduated summa cum laude, and I was outstanding physical educator of the year and all kind of, you know, I was going to be a teacher. I was going to be phys ed teacher. And my concentration was in elementary phys ed. And I ended up in Westchester State University. It's out close to Philadelphia. And I did a 2-year program in less than a year and graduated, and I started teaching. I didn't have a whole lot of money. You know, I can remember when I was doing my master's, I would usually Thursday night, I'd go in this bar and I'd get a 6-pack of beer. It was 16-ounce bottles. And I'd go home, drink 1 or 2 or 3 that night. And Friday night, I might drink 1 or 2 or 3, and whatever's left on Saturday, I'd drink it, and that would be it. And I wouldn't drink. So, you know, how the hell could I have a drinking problem? You know, I had it under control, right? Yeah, I had it under control. But I started teaching, I started making better money. I started getting drunk more often. I started running with a crazy crowd. And then I moved out here. I lost that teaching job because of teacher cutbacks. And I moved out to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I live now. It's just south of Berg. And hardly had anything. I was working really 2 or 3 part-time jobs just to make ends meet. And I moved here with a girl. She came along with me. We lived together for like a year and a half until that broke up. And I got engaged, I don't know how many times in between with different women. And, you know, with a beer in my hand, I was never loyal to anybody or anything. Because the beer always came first. What it comes down to. So I ended up getting a job working in a feed mill, making pretty decent money actually. And I was teaching school 1 day a week, phys ed at a Catholic school, because I had my master's degree in it. And I started really making good money. My rent was like 150 a month, and I was clearing over 200 a week. By that time, money was not a problem. And I worked nights. And the girl and I broke up, and I ended up getting my own apartment. And, you know, I started, as I had more money, I started drinking more and getting drunk more and started hanging out in bars and running with the crowd, doing all the things that we know how to do really well. And I thought when I showed up here at in AA, I would quit drinking like certain days of the week. I wouldn't drink Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or I wouldn't drink Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or I'd only drink weekends, or I only drink before certain times of the day or night. And I thought I was original in that. I thought I was the only one that knew how to do that. And I was trying because it was getting to be a problem. I didn't want to admit it, but I'd done my whole life. I drank that way my whole life. And I came from, and I was taught and trained by, I remember my uncles, my mom's brothers and brother-in-laws, they would sit there to me and they'd say, look, Hank, this is what you do. You control your drinking. You got to learn how you don't drink too much. You watch what you're drinking. And then you chase women. Crazy ass uncles. Oh my God, they were nuts. My aunts were nuts too. You know, I have an aunt, Barb, that's my mom's sister. Is 96. Every night to this day, every night, she drives herself to the VFW, sits there, drinks all night, comes home like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, drives herself home, has never had a DUI, nothing. Does that every day of the week and every day, period. That's what she does. I don't understand it. She does. She drinks like that. And she drank like that when I was around her. She was crazy. Good woman, love her to death. How she does it, I have no clue. But anyway, back to my story. I drank to the point, and I lost my license a couple times. Always got them back, but was always, I thought I was all right. Everybody drinks, right? I made all the excuses, everything there was to it. My drinking career spanned 35, 36 years, I always say. Probably was longer than that. Because, I could see my aunts and uncles when I was getting to be like a teenager that had babies, that had grandkids, basically. And they would be bouncing them on their knees and feeding them a beer bottle. The baby would be drinking beer and they're not even 1 year old. And that's the way my family was. They were beer drinking Germans. And that's how you were raised. And that's what you were taught. And I thought that's the way my life would always be. I'd end up on a beach someplace in my 80s and with the Norway volleyball team, girls volleyball team surrounding me, and I'd be sitting there drinking a beer. That's what I always thought. So I showed up in AA, like I said, September 19th, 1987. Knew I wasn't going to quit drinking. I drank myself to the point where I could not stop drinking. And just backing up maybe 2-3 months, I quit drinking on my own. After going on a run, I had retired at 41 years old. I had bought a house, had a car, had a truck, had everything paid off. I had money in the bank. And I said, I'm retiring. That's it. I'm 41 years old. I'm done with working. Because I was working 2 or 3 jobs at a time. And man was in deep shit. I was in real deep shit. Didn't know it at the time. And, I get up in the morning and say, okay, what am I going to do? Well, I get a beer. I figure that out. So I'd grab a beer and I'd be drunk again. And I'd end up passing out and waking up, passing out. Well, At some point, I stopped drinking on my own. No program, no AA, nothing. I just quit drinking, and I got feeling better. You know, I got, my God, I started eating again, and I gained a little weight, and I quit drinking for like a month or two, something like that. And what I did was I signed up to become a real estate agent. I thought, you know, I'm going to give this a try. That's what I'm going to become, is a real estate agent. And so I put money down to start classes. And I started working a little part-time job for a buddy of mine, just to give me a couple extra bucks and kill some time. And lo and behold, I came home from work one night and had a really tough day, you know. And I thought, God, I could use a beer. And a half a block from the house that I owned and where bar, and I'd never been in it, and I had owned that home for like 8 years. I'd never been in that damn bar. And I thought, yeah, I'm gonna go over and have just one, no, maybe 2 or 3 beers. Okay, maybe a 6-pack, no more. And I went over and had the first one, and that was it. And what I did was I started carrying 6-packs out of the bar. And here you can only take 2 6-packs at a time out of the bar. That's all they'll sell you. So I took those and ran back to my house, ran back over, got 2 more, ran back over and got 2 more. And I went on another run that lasted for, I don't know how long it was, a week or 2 or 3 or however long it was. And I came to September 19th, 1987. And I picked up the phone and I called the AA hotline and said, I think I want to go to one of your meetings. And the guy said, okay. And he told me where it was. And it was at night. He said, no, look, you cannot drink all day. And I don't know how I did not drink that whole day, but I didn't. And I showed up at my first meeting. And they said, is anybody here at your first meeting? I raised my hand. I said, my name's Hank. And don't tell me I got to quit drinking, because you can kiss my ass. That's not going to happen. And I don't know what happened at that meeting. I don't remember what was said exactly, but something clicked. And they started, I don't know what it is. They started melting away all those excuses that I drank because of and for, basically. You know, when they told us drink gets you drunk. When they told me that, you know, what are you doing? Going to a party? Are you going there just to meet people, or are you going there to get drunk? What is your reasons for drinking? And all the stuff that I've learned over the years of that's dispelled all that myth that I do have to drink, that my life is better with a beer in my hand. All that crap has been totally dissolved over the years. And how big a problem my life has become because of my drinking. You know, at 41, I was ready to die. I really was ready. I thought, man, I had done so many things. I had lived such a great life. And this is it. If this is it, this is it. And 37 plus years after that, 38, whatever the hell it is, 36, my life has gotten so much better without a beer in my hand. So much better. And it wasn't easy. You know, I white knuckled it. They said, get a sponsor. I didn't do that. They said, get a home group. Didn't do that. Read the big book. Didn't do that. You know, do the steps. Didn't do that. Definitely not. Said, do the meetings. I could do meetings. And that's what I did. I did a lot of meetings. I kept coming to meetings and listening to what you people told me happened to you. I always went to the old timers, the old guys. I loved their stories. They had great stories, phenomenal stories. Bill Tennant used to talk about how he was in a bottle gangs, and they had all these drunks that were together, and when they get a bottle, they'd all share it. you know, and they called them bottle gangs because we're all gangs, and all they were looking for is a butt, you know, to get drunk, to drink. And somehow he had like 30 some years and wasn't drinking. God, how can he do that? How in the hell could he have that many years? Guy said he had 2 years. I thought, my God, that is forever. So I got the feeling physically better because, you know, when I came in here, my liver was screaming, my kidneys. Physically, I was like 170 pounds. Right now, I'm like about 230. My normal weight back then was probably about 190, something like that. And I started eating better. And there was a woman, we had been together off and on for like 5 years. And we'd break up because of my drinking. She had a daughter. When I met her, she was 8 years old. And I don't know how this happened because we broke up for the last time. So that's it. Done with her. I'm on my own now. And she called me when I hadn't been drinking for about a month. She called me about something. I had left something over at her house. And we started talking, and she said, you sound different. I said, well, I'm not drinking. She said, what are you doing? I said, I'm going to AA. It's working. And I feel better. She started crying. She was engaged to marry somebody else. She had met like a year prior or something like that. And don't ask me how. Somehow we got back together. And 9 months after I stopped drinking, we got married somehow. And by then, the stepdaughter was 13 years old. Well, you know, that's not going to work. I had never been married before. I was 42 years old, divorced. It isn't going to work. And when is it? June 25th, I think we celebrate 37 years together, married. And you know how I did that? I didn't drink. And I kept coming back, and I kept listening to people go to the old time. I'd go there and I'd say, you know, I got this big, huge problem. And, you know, I remember coming on in, it's Charlie Cyberly. I come walking in, Charlie, I got this goddamn big problem's going on. I got to talk to you, Charlie. Charlie said, hey, Hank, do me a favor. Would you, Hank? He said, I'll talk to you. But first of all, there's a new guy over there that needs to talk to you. You know, he needs to talk to you. You go there, new guy. I said, but Charlie, he said, not now, Hank. You talk to him, and then I'll talk to you. Okay? I said, fine. So the newcomer would be standing there. I went over there and I talked to that guy, and I remember I sat there for an hour and a half talking to him. Man, I thought I had problems. My God, you know, this guy, he was like crazy. I remember talking. I can't even remember what his name was, but all this shit was going on. He was going to go to jail. He had like embezzled money, and it was like a catastrophe. And I got done talking to him. He had to go, and so I walked back over to Charlie, and he said, "Did you talk to the guy?" I said, "Yeah." Man, he's really got problems. And Charlie said, what do you want? I said, I can't remember. Couldn't remember. My problem just went away. It wasn't all that bad, I guess, is what it come down to. So I hung around AA, and I kept coming to meetings. I had about 4 years, and this guy started hanging around with me, a newcomer. His name was Bill Culp. And he kept hanging. I'd see him at meetings, and I was doing real estate, and he'd show up at my open houses, and we'd talk all the time. And he finally said, look, he said, how do you get a sponsor? Bill said to me, and I said, well, you go ask somebody. You can ask somebody you feel comfortable with to be your sponsor. He said, do you have a sponsor? I said, no, I don't have a sponsor, but they tell you should get one, and you probably should get one. He said, why don't you have one? I said, I don't know. I don't have one. Haven't found somebody I trust enough to be a sponsor. And he went through 50 questions about the same damn thing. And I said, look, all you do is go ask somebody to be your sponsor. And you know, if they say, okay, then you got a sponsor. He said, okay, will you be my sponsor? And I about fell through the floor. I really about fell through the floor. And said, look, you'd be better off finding somebody. I feel comfortable with you. Will you answer? I thought, shit, I can't get out of this one. So I said, okay, look, we'll try this. We'll try it. And I'll see, if it doesn't work out, then you can always go find somebody else. And he said, okay, you're my sponsor. He said, what should I do? And I said, well, it'd be probably a good idea if you read the big book. And Bill said to me, he said, well, have you read the big book? I said, oh, no, not yet. I haven't read the big book. He said, Bill said, well, why in the hell should I read the big book? You're my sponsor. If you haven't read it, I shouldn't have to read it. And I said, look, idiot, you're the one asked me to be your sponsor and you don't take my direction. Now you're telling me what to do. He said, okay, look, I'll read it. I thought, well, if this guy's going to read it, I guess I've got to read it because he's going to be asking me questions about what's in this book. And if I can't, if I don't know what the heck he's talking about, I can't give him a good answer. So I started reading the big book. And I kept reading the big book. And since then, I probably read the big book cover to cover, easy 20, 30 times, something like that. And Bill went back out and he tried to commit suicide 2 or 3 times. And I blame myself. He got on the pills. He got into a bunch of other things. And I talked to an old guy, old time about it, Tom, and he said, look, he said, it's not you, it's the disease. I said, look, I chased after him. I mean, I swear to God, I did so many things did so many things wrong. And I learned so much from that guy on what not to do with sponsees. And since then, I've had a number of sponsees, and some of them are drunk and some of them haven't. But I always tell people, you're never going to be able to get it perfect, but just trying to help somebody else is the answer to sobriety, period. For me, as well as for other people, that you can't do them harm. And if you think you're doing them harm, then turn them loose and tell them to get somebody else, is what I always say. And somehow I wasn't drinking. I don't know how in the hell I was not drinking, but I wasn't. I didn't believe in God. I had about 4.5 years. And there was this guy, after sponsoring Bill for a while, I learned the benefit of having a sponsor, of being a sponsor. I asked this guy, Miles, to sponsor me. And he said, yeah, very religious guy. And I thought that's what I was looking for. I was looking for God and understanding at the time. And so Miles and I started working together. We became great friends. It was more like he had and I was sponsoring him at the same time. And Miles had when we started, I had about 4.5 years and Miles had 25, something like that. So he had some time in AA. He knew the big book and he was very religious and talked about the big black book, which is the Bible, all the time. We didn't click there very well at all. But we became good friends. And then I got a home group and I started, and, I had about maybe a year or two. And I always heard people say about getting involved in AA. You got to get involved in AA. You got to become a secretary, become a treasurer in a group, GSR. Didn't know what all any of them was, but, I just didn't get involved. And there's a guy, Chuck, to tell, we're at a 7:00 meeting on Saturday night. Afterwards, we'd always play pinochle cards. A bunch of us get together and play cards. And Chuck's sitting in front of me and he leans back. He said, hey, Hank, he said, you want to be my assistant GSR? And I said, what the hell is an assistant GSR, Chuck? And he explained to me that if he wasn't there, that I was to take over. I said, look, I'll be your assistant GSR if you always show up. Don't ever not show up. That's about as involved as I've gotten in AA. I had about 1995, so I had about 8 years, I guess, somewhere out there. And I was doing this meeting that was a beginner's meeting, and you'll never see another one like it. Probably it was 2 blocks from the hospital, And what they would do is they would go down to the hospital. The people that ran the meeting would go down to the hospital and get the people that were in detox and say, anybody want to go to an AA meeting? And they'd walk them down to the meeting, which started at 1 o'clock. And these people would still be in gowns in the scrubs. Like, they'd walk in the wintertime, the summertime, everything was amazing. They'd walk them 2 blocks down to this meeting and then take them back. And I would go to that meeting every Saturday at 1 o'clock. I loved it because it was a beginner's meeting and it was always on the first step. Always on the first step. There's a guy, Bill, can't remember his last name, that I used to talk to a lot. He had like 20, 30 years, something like that. And Bill said to me, he said, look, when I had maybe 6 months, he said, look, this is what I want you to do. Listen to me. I said, okay. He said, do you have the 12 and 12? I said, yes, I do. He said, do you read it? I said, I have it. He said, I said, I have it. He said, do you read it? I said, no. He said, I want you to go to the first step and I want you to read. I don't want you to memorize it. I want you to read it. Okay. Every day. I said, for how long? He said, I want you to read it every day. I said, for how long? He said, listen to me. I want you to read it every day. Okay. And then I will talk to you. I said, okay, I'll read it every day. And I did. And I still do. I don't do read it every day, but I still read an awful lot. And I really started getting the first step about alcohol, the rapacious creditor that bleeds us of all will to resist its demands. And that our drinking was not a mere habit, but a fatal progression. Wow. When Bill wrote those words, chills still go down my back when I hear that. And I got the first step and I hung on to that first step. I still do to this day. I see tons of people that turn around and come in AA and stay for whatever length of time. And then they go back out drinking and they come back in and they say, I really think I need to get that 4-step better, or I need to get that 6-step better, or that 7-step. I say, you ever try to get on that first step and stay on it? I said, well, no, it's not my problem. I said, God damn it, you got drunk, didn't you? Something's not right. So thank God I've stayed with that first step still to this day, with the years that I have, almost, I guess it's what, 37? See, I got married 9 months after I quit drinking. And people ask me, how long you've been married? And I say, we've been married 37 years. My wife said, no, we've been married 36 years. I said, oh, okay, we've been married 36 years. So I get those two screwed up and I can never get them straight, but that's all right. It's since 1987, let's put it that way. Nonetheless, I kept coming back. I got about 12 years. About 12 years, and I'm running this Saturday group. And I thought, well, what happened was this guy had done it for 2 years, and it was Saturday at 1 o'clock, and he put the key down on the counter, and he said, that's it. I'm done running this group. And I picked it up and I said, okay, I'll do it for a month. And that was in the fall of 95. And I just gave it up when the pandemic has happened at the end of 2020. So I ran that for 25 years. Every Saturday, showed up, made the coffee, usually chaired the meeting because nobody wanted to, of course. And I started baking cookies for it. And that group went from maybe 5, 10 people. We easily got 20, 30 every week. Mainly they came for the cookies, but they stayed for the recovery, I always say. And it was good for me. It's really good for me. I got about 12 years. And I don't know, got a good case of it. Go to hell with everything. Sick of everything. I didn't want to be married anymore. I didn't want to do real estate anymore. I didn't want to I didn't want to do anything anymore. I just wanted to probably go out and get drunk, is what I was thinking. That would be a good idea, I thought. Charlie Cyberlin, that I'd seen all the time. Charlie had, I don't know, 30, 40 years, something like that. Good man. Used to talk to him all the time. Nice guy. Showed up at a meeting, and Charlie had been to the doctor. He had stomach issues. He thought he might have ulcer or something. Here it was cancer. It's terminal. I remember sitting after the meeting talking, and they had a bed for him at the VA. And he said, "This is it. They gave me 6 months. It ain't going to take that long. It's probably going to be 3." And we sat there a while and talked. We all gave him our, love and everything we could, and left. And I went home. This was before cell phones. I called him. I said, "Charlie." He said, "Yes, it's Hank." Said, "Yeah, Charlie, let's go get drunk." He said, "What?" I said, "Charlie, let's go get drunk. You and me. I'm buying. I got the money. I had to ask all this shit going on in my life. My life sucks. God damn it. I'm ready to get drunk. I'll pick you up. We'll go out and we'll get wasted." He said, "What are you talking about, Hank?" I said, "Charlie, you just said you got maybe 3 months to live." He said, "Yeah, but that's not today. That's not today. Today I'm not drinking, Hank." And I said, "Charlie, my God, you only got three months to live. What the hell? Isn't it time you go out and get drunk?" He said, "I am not going to shame my life. I am not going to shame my life, Hank. And you shouldn't either. There's no way you should pick a drink up for any and all reasons. Isn't that what you said? I've heard you say it a number of times. I'm not picking a drink up. I want to die sober." And I thought, "You fucking asshole." I hung up on him. Next morning, they called me. He said, "You get drunk?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, I prayed for you, buddy. I really prayed for you. You did. There's no reason for you to get drunk, period. There's none. It doesn't matter how big a broken shoelace to a broken marriage and everything in between. You don't pick up a drink for any and all reasons. You deal with it as I'm dealing with it." He said, "I love you, Hank." And I said, "I love you. I love you, Charlie. You too." And I haven't drank. I just have not drank for any and all reasons. I faced bankruptcy. My God, my wife and I got married, like I said, and built this big home. Debts were like crazy. I was facing bankruptcy. Fortunately, there was a guy that I knew real well that do all that stuff. Sat down with me and he showed me what I could do and how I could do it. And he said, "The first thing you got to do is you got to work. You got to go get business. Go work, keep rentals, keep doing this, and do it a step at a time." And I said, "I know how to do things a step at a time. I know how to do things a piece at a time, not try to look at the overall picture. Just take it a day at a time and you'll be okay." And he was right. And I was all right. And we come out of that okay. I own this house free and clear. All my cars free and clear. Got money in the bank. Then I get to be 75. So I'm 79 now. And I'm going to meetings. The pandemic hits, first of all, in 2020. And meetings shut down in Pennsylvania is what they did. There's no meetings at all that I could find. And all the churches wouldn't allow you to have them. The clubs were all shut down. In Pennsylvania, the governor declared a state emergency. Everybody was to stay home. And and I went, and my wife and I stayed home, is what we did. Didn't work, didn't do anything for 2 months. And I was fine. And you know what fine is? When they told me what fine is effed up, insecure, neurotic, and emotionally disturbed. And I was fine for 2 months. Believe me, I was fine. Messed up in the head, because I hadn't done a meeting. I was okay. I wasn't probably going to drink, but boy, I was not. I was like cooped up, just edgy. I needed to do something. Lo and behold, I've heard about Zoom. And so I tried it. And I've been doing Zoom ever since. And I had 32 years in AA and could never do a 90 and 90. I was always something got in the way that I couldn't. Sundays I always had open house. In real estate, I was on the run all the damn time. Always trying to get business or catch up the business. I've always been involved helping my stepdaughter with her business. I took care of all the bills here. I had 2 rentals that I was watching. I mean, every time I was used to being on the run and loved being on the run. Don't get me wrong. That's a part of my life. I've always had to be busy. Loved being busy. And I started doing Zoom, and I get 1 or 2 meetings I can do. Wow, and some of them are 24 hours a day. Good, and the next thing pops up on my Facebook, other Zoom meeting. I started writing them down, and I started making a catalog of. There's some meetings like this meeting I know meets 1 day a week that I usually come here on Saturday. There's some that met every day of the week. Some that meet different times. Everything. I started making a catalog of it. Now I've got like over 1,000 meetings a week I can do, which is amazing, and I love them. They're speaker meetings. They're all over the world. People in Iceland, people in Africa. People say, I can't get to meetings. I just, like hell, you can't get to meetings. When they're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, there's no excuse. That's for sure. Zoom. And people say, well, they're not the same. They're all on recovery. They help keep me away from a drink. That's the hell what I want. That's, it's making excuses. You want to get drunk or you want to stay sober. That's what they used to say to me all the time. Then you do what you got to do to get right in your head. And so I do, like, this is my 3rd or 4th meeting today. Tomorrow I'll do 2 or 3 at least. And I still do in-house meetings, not as much as I used to, but I got to be 75. And I had a colonoscopy. And it was my 3rd one or 4th one, I can't remember. And everything was fine with it. But when I come out of it, the doctor said, your heart rate is extremely low. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, it's supposed to be beating 60 to 70 beats a minute. 70 is the norm. 60 is acceptable. Yours is beating under 40. Something not right with your heart. And so I went to heart specialists, put a pacemaker in. A year later, they put a Watchman in. A year later, I gotten so many things. I had double hernia surgery. I had problems with my kidneys. I had a cyst on my kidneys, and then I had kidney stones, and then I had one thing after the other, and lo and behold, then I have cancer. Prostate cancer. And my doctor said, your prostate levels have jumped double. And I said, what does that mean? He said, well, it's not good. I said, what do you mean it's not good? He said, well, you probably got an issue there. And I said, what's the issue, Gary? He said, cancer. He says, look, I want to send you a specialist. And this was December 8th, 23, I think it was. So I couldn't get an appointment with this guy until mid-February. The most difficult time was from there until I met with this guy in mid-February. Because I sat down and I had to say to myself, okay, Hank, what are you going to do? Was Charlie Cyberling right? For any and all reasons that you're not going to drink? Why don't you just not drink and see what happens? Why don't you just give this a chance? You don't pick up the first drink, idiot. You go to meetings. You can talk about it if you want. Knowing you'll hold it in, and I did for a while. And then I started talking about it. But I kept coming to meetings. I kept not drinking. And I want to see what would happen. So I met with this doctor. He looked at the records and everything. And I said, I have cancer, right? And he said, yeah, but we don't know how. And I said, well, what are we going to do? And he said, well, you got a choice. You can leave it go, which I don't recommend, or we can do this kind of test, or we can do. I said, which is the best? He said, the third one. He said, then we'll know exactly what's in our way. And I said, answer me one question, would you, doc? And he said, yeah. I said, you know a lot about this stuff, man. He said, yeah, I do. I said, well, this was February. I said, will I be able to see the Super Bowl next year? He said, oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to see the Super Bowl next year. I knew I was all right. I knew I was going to be okay. I knew that he probably was going to be able to take care of what was not right with me. So I went through the whole process. I ended up getting a hormone treatment, radiation treatment. I did everything they told me to. It wasn't an easy process. It lasted that whole year. I finished everything, I think it was November 8th. And they said, we're going to run some tests. We need to do blood work, but we got to wait a month or so to see everything clear. And so they did tests and everything was fine. I'm clear of cancer, which I was surprised. Man, yeah, my old me would have said how unfair the world was, how how unfair this is, how life sucks and all this shit, and to hell with them, and I'm going to get drunk. That would be me in my old life. In my new life, I did what the hell they told me to, and today I'm fine. I'm pretty much cancer free. Then I had problems with my kidneys. Every time I've turned around, I've had another issue. When at 75, I thought, man, I've escaped all this. Well, you don't smoke for over 20 years and drink for over 35 and not get away with nothing. That's what I say. So down the line, I still could have issues, I'm sure, but just a day at a time. And the problem and AA people, I'll get through it. I'll be okay. I won't come unglued. I won't. A day at a time. There's more challenges. My memory's going to go. God knows. Who knows? I'm in my 80th. I'm in my 80th year. In my 80th year, and I love to say that. December 5th, 1945. I was born. When I get to this December 5th, I'll be 80 years old. And what an amazing life. My stepdaughter that hated my guts, that wouldn't have a thing to do with me, loves the hell out of me today, thinks the world of me, comes to me and asks me for help, more so than she does her own dad that's still alive. When she needs something, she'll come to me and ask me, she says, Hank, you don't have to do it. I said, yes, I do, Amy. I'm your stepdad. I have to do this for you. And I become a husband. My goal is to become a good person, a good husband, and a great stepdad. That's my goals on a daily basis. Didn't have those when I walked in the doors of AA. Didn't believe in shit like that when I became an AA. And it's amazing, by helping people, just hanging around the AA clubhouses and listening to people and their stories and learning so damn much from you people. It's amazing on how much better my life has become. Phenomenally better, much better. Unbelievable. I've seen too many people that have said, screw this, that has turned their back. Once I picked up that one job there on Saturdays at 1:00 doing that meeting. There's another meeting that came about on Thursday mornings, and I opened and closed that for 13, 14 years. And I took a meeting on Tuesday nights. It was called Sober at 6, and it was on every Tuesday, 6 to 7. And they had a different format. I changed it. And I read from the Came to Believe book, is what we did. And we talked about, we'd take a great book. I was searching for a God, searching that I needed to get something more in my life. And I found some things in there that really worked for me. that there's a whole reading in there. A guy talks about his God is good. And that's what his God is, that he needs to be a good person, a good human being, and help other people. And that's the answer to his life. And that has become mine. I'm asking people, how you doing? What's going on in your life? And seeing a newcomer and seeing that alcoholic stare, you can see him. My God, you can see him when they come in out in the rehabs. They come walking in. And they sit there and they look down and think, how in God's name did I get here? How you got here is picking that damn drink up. And how do you get out of it? Is by not picking the drink up, is what I've come to realize. A day at a time, just a day at a time, and I look down on them. I think I counted them up. I'll have 14,000 days. I think it's January 8th, I believe is what it is. If I make it next year. The 26th. But, I got to get through the day first. That's what I always look at. Just a day at a time. And I tackle my problems like that. If I have issues, if I had whatever, when I was facing cancer and all that other stuff was going on, and, gave me these hormone pills. And what it does is it kills your testosterone. And I had hot flashes, cold flashes, hot flashes. The next minute I had hot flashes. It was like, man. It was like I was going right, left, and everything. I said, but you know what? In 6 months, I'm done with these damn pills, and I'll be okay. And I got the rest of my life to live. But I have to get through this to get to that. And that's what they told me in AA. You got to get to the day, you get to tomorrow. And once you get to tomorrow, you only got to get to that day. That's all you got to do. And you can do it a day at a time, a minute at a time, a second at a time if you have to. You break your life down. When you got little big problems, you make them small. You take little pieces of them and work on those little pieces, and it'll work out. It always has. It always has worked out. In spite of myself. Believe me, in spite of myself. So I keep coming back. I've learned so much from you people, and I so much more to learn. Just so much more. I got up. God almighty, I got so much more life to live. At 41, I was ready to die. Here I am at almost 80. And it's amazing. Just a day at a time. Just a day at a time. I can do it, and so can you. Enough out of me. I don't know if this is as long as you wanted me to speak. I may have gone over. If I did, I apologize. But I really hope you all stay sober. Really, I hope you do. And keep coming back. Enough out of me.
Thanks, Hank. I really enjoyed that, and I got so much from it. Your story, I was told I had to stay sober through any and all conditions from day one, and the big book was thrown at me. I was told this is how you get sober, and if you want to get sober, this is how you do it. If you don't, I was told take your misery, no mercy, and go F off. And over the last few years, we nearly lost everything financially as well a few years ago. And thanks, Hank, for bailing me out today. Anytime I lose a speaker, someone that has the qualifications turns up for me, and I really appreciate your story. I got a lot from it, as I said. And Catherine is going to read the promises for us.
Thanks, Mossy. AA promises from pages 83 and 84 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we'll be amazed before we're halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude, outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They're being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Thank you, Catherine. And I just want to thank Kathleen that she said to go up for there, and the other co-hosts that were with us. And thanks to those, Catherine and Cisco, for doing the readings. Special thanks to Hank that bailed me out today.
Thanks, Hank.
And a very interesting story.
Yeah.
And just a reminder, guys, we have meetings on 7 days a week. Our morning meeting starts at 8:30 every morning, UK time. We have a lunchtime meeting every Sunday at 1 o'clock. It's a step 11 meditation meeting. Saturdays at 6 o'clock, we have the old timers, which is an extended share recorded on for our archives. And Thursday evenings, we have a meeting at 7:30 UK time. We use the same meeting code for all our meetings. Stick around for fellowship after the meeting. If you want the breakout room, we'll sort it afterwards. And the yellow card. Who you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, let it stay here. And that's it, guys. Hank, will you lead us out with the serenity prayer, please?
Sure.
Good man.
God grant us the serenity to accept the things we
Accept
cannot
the
change.
things that cannot change,
Thank
and the
you.
courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. Amen.
Please
Bye, everybody.
stay.
Have a blessed
Please
evening and
stay.
great week. I'll see you
Please
next Saturday.
stay. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Joe.
Thank you, Hank.
Bye,
Thank you
Lily.
for the great